Hello and welcome to the Talking Shit Podcast special, Kong, King of Cinema.
I'll share it with all of you. Why, in a few months it'll be up in lights on Broadway. Kong, the eighth wonder of the world!
It is hard to argue that one of the biggest monsters, both physically and historically, is none other than Kong, the eighth wonder of the world. Brought to life by Marion C. Cooper and his gang of filmmakers, the parts of Carl Denham and Jack are based on himself and his partner, Ernest B. Schoedsack, who most say co-directed the film with him. Kong himself is the creation of Willis O'Brien, who helped Cooper finally bring his vision to the screen after years and years of the growing seed that was planted as a young boy, then ignited again when he saw a Komodo dragon for the first time. He wanted to pit the dragon against an ape, film it, and have it be the big set piece in a story about a giant ape. Besides Cooper, Ruth Rose, who partially was the inspiration for Heroine Anne, wrote along with James Creelman and some work by Leon Gordon. Edgar Wallace is given some credit, but Cooper has said that none of his work has been used in the final film. Wallace sadly died early in the process in 1932. A story that draws inspiration from Beauty and the Beast, The Musings of a Child, and The Traveler of the World. We are all treated to something so different from anything seen before. And if Kong had never made his way to the screen, we wouldn't have movies today as we know them. Unleashed March 2nd, 1933, King Kong was the first ever huge effects film. Utilizing stop motion and full-size Kong models, the crew brought Kong to breathing life, although they hid the truth about Kong's effects for years, going as far as planting a story about a live ape being used in a miniature set. This, of course, was not the case, as explained before. The film also used a lot of rear screen projection and other new techniques never used before, like special film stocks that could be filmed upon twice and early optical work. Techniques that would go on to be perfected up until the computer revolution in special effects in the 1990s. Nearly everyone knows the story of a whirlwind director named Carl Denham who sets out on a mission to film something that nobody's ever seen before. Along with his crew and actress Ann Darrow, they find a lot more than they bargained for.
Perhaps if you didn't see it, you could scream. Throw your arms across your eyes and scream, man. Scream for your life. What's he think she's really gonna see?
The king of an island, of course, is everyone's favorite overgrown ape. The natives kidnap Anne and sacrifice her to their king, who takes her deep into the jungle island. The crew follows and tries to rescue her. They succeed and succumb the beast, taking him back to America to parade him in front of crowds as a spectacle, billed as the eighth wonder of the world. But of course Kong escapes, kidnapping Anne and climbing atop the Empire State Building, only to face down a barrage of attack planes and falls to his death after taking too many shots. The beautifully crafted tale is what movies are all about. It's so much ahead of its time and still inspires filmmakers to this day, let alone many parodies, commercials, cartoons, books, comics, video games, theme parks, and even a stage play. Tons of merchandising, spin-offs, and so much more. Kong is even bigger than himself to this day, almost 85 years later. Unlike most movie monsters of the day, like Frankenstein and Dracula, Kong wasn't an adaptation of a book or a play. He was first and foremost a film star. A sequel came Fast and Furious, and ironic 9 months later, Son of Kong was born and made his way to the screen. The Kong franchise is one of the first ever film franchises. Besides the obvious films that it inspired, like Mighty Joe Young, Kong had more rip-offs than sequels and remakes. Most are so bad they're hilarious. Films like Konga, The Mighty Gorga, Ape, Queen Kong, and Mighty Pecking Man are the most famous of these. Of course, Kong wouldn't stay off the screen for long. After the successful re-release in the 1950s and the popularity of Japan's answer to the big guy Godzilla growing and growing, it was only a matter of time that Kong would not only return to the big screen, but he would face his biggest foe yet, the aforementioned Godzilla, or Gojira, as he is called over there. Toho, the company that delivered us Godzilla, licensed the great ape, and on August 11th, 1962, we got to see the grudge match of the decade with King King Kong vs. Godzilla. Obviously cut and dubbed for the American versions, there is not an alternate ending as many believe. Both versions are nearly identical, and King Kong was also replaced with a man in a suit like Godzilla was originally. No stop motion actor this time around. As far as classic monster mashes go, King Kong vs. Godzilla is arguably the most famous of them all.
Mammoth, Behemoth, Goliath, King Kong escapes and meets his greatest foe.
A few years later, in 1967, Toho and Filmation worked together to bring to the screen King Kong Escapes, with a cartoon to go along with the film.
The name of King Kong, you know the name of King Kong, 10 times as big as a man.
The movie is about Kong pit against a mechanized version of himself. Though Kong resembles what he looked like a few years before in King Kong vs. Godzilla, this is not a sequel according to the creators. Kong was now more or less considered a kiddie character, being in a family-friendly film and an animated series. Most probably felt that the eighth wonder of the world had lost his edge. That was until 1976 when Dino De Laurentiis released his remake of the original film. Universal and De Laurentiis had battled for who had the rights to remake the film in court, with De Laurentiis finally winning out and paying a fee to Universal in the end. This was not the last time the King of Skull Island would make his way into court either. The film, released December of 1976, was fairly well received and did pretty well at the box office. The story is very similar to the original, only updated, and a voyage being the venture of an oil company instead of a film crew. And Jack is now a stowaway Greenpeace type who has knowledge of apes, of course. And our heroine is renamed Dwan and found afloat at sea alone in a raft, the only known survivor of a party yacht accident. The rest of the film pretty much plays out exactly like the original, only this time ending with the Twin Towers instead of the Empire State Building. The effects this time around were 99% man in a suit. Once again, like Toho's films, with the use of a full-size Kong in only about 2 scenes. Like the original film's creators, the filmmakers at the time wanted you to believe the full-size Kong was used much more. Kong was brought to life by Carlo Rambaldi and up-and-coming makeup effects artist Rick Baker. Baker also spent time in the suit along with Peter Cullen, who is best known as the voice of Optimus Prime. When the film was premiered on TV a few years later, it had a large amount of deleted scenes added back in, and it was presented over 2 nights. The new film had tons of merchandise and brought Kong to a whole new group of generations.
King Kong! On King Kong glasses. Get one free at Burger Chef when you buy a Big Chef or Super Chef, large fries, and a large serving of Coca-Cola. Or get one with purchase of a regular size Coke at a special price.
And now you can build your own King Kong with these challenging King Kong model kits. You need no glue, no special tools. Just snap together and paint it, and you have a realistic model of Kong fighting the giant snake. Or for a real challenge, build King Kong on top of the Twin Towers. When you're finished, they make a great addition to any kid's room.
Kong's popularity showed no signs of slowing, as in the 80s we got a sequel to the 76 film called King Kong Lives, though not very well received with the audience and critics. There was a Universal ride, along with Kong being restored for the first time to its original version since it had been re-released and been censored in the 1950s. Kong was used in so many commercials over the years it's hard to count.
Volkswagen 411. It has some things no Volkswagen ever had, like 4 big doors and lots of room and luxury for the whole family.
Hey, you big ape! You know who has to pay for this mess?
Transamerica, for insurance and financial services, the power of the pyramid.
Not again.
Going somewhere? Then don't forget to take along the Sony Slimline Watchman.
the world's first four-door Wrangler. Wrangler Unlimited, a new species from Jeep.
Irritação na garganta deixa qualquer um de mau humor.
Eu tenho a arma para liquidar este problema. Pastilhas Cepacol aliviam até a garganta mais irritada e deixam na boca um gostinho.
Connect 4, the game where you've got to think big to connect 4 and win.
From silver screens to flat screens, Twizzlerize your entertainment every day.
Still going. Nothing outlasts the Energizer battery. It keeps going and...
The Mighty Kong, the kid-friendly animated musical version of the classic story of King Kong.
Kong is more than just an American icon now. Kong has truly reached beyond seas and borders and become a lexicon of culture in general and American history loved the world over. Like clockwork again, nearly 10 years after the release of King Kong Lives, Universal finally was ready to take their crack at the beast. Behind a young favorite new director named Peter Jackson. Production fell apart, but would come back together yet another 10 years later with 2005's remake of the film. Jackson's version resembles the original more than the 76 remake, but expands on the story. And Kong is nearly 100% computer generated, but still performed by an actor in Andy Serkis, best known for his other portrayals of computer generated characters such as Gollum and fellow ape Caesar from the newest Planet of the Apes series. Serkis is also an actual human actor in the film as he plays the ship's cook. The film wasn't a huge success, but it was by no means a letdown or a bomb at the box office. It even got an expanded version on home video a few years later, along with an animated series to go along with it and tons of merchandise. Then just over 10 years after that in 2017, Kong returned to the big screen once again in his new shared cinematic universe with the latest version of Godzilla in Kong Skull Island. With a new version of King Kong vs. Godzilla set for 2020, Kong is still going strong all these years later and still proving he is the king of cinema. Next month, Kong Skull Island comes out, and to celebrate, I'm going to be reviewing a bunch of the King Kong films over the years, and I'm going to be giving away a digital version of Peter Jackson's 2005 King Kong next month, along with doing all the reviews. But if you want to be eligible, though, you got to head over to the Facebook, and the link's down below. Just go ahead and click like on the Facebook, and when the announcement comes up, you'll be ready to go then. As always, keep talking shit.